Dear students, hope you fine. Today we are going to learn the remaining part of the lesson, A Truly Beautiful Mind. Lesson 4 in your textbook. In the last session you have learned that Albert Einstein was not accepted as a genius in his childhood, but he got distinction in physics and mathematics. Now I will read the 8th paragraph. In 1900, at the age of 21, Albert Einstein was a university graduate and unemployed. He worked as a teaching assistant, gave private lessons, and finally secured a job in 1902 as a technical expert in patent office in Bern. While he was supposed to be assessing other people's inventions, Einstein was actually developing his own ideas in secret. He is said to have jokingly called his desk drawer at work the Bureau of Theoretical Physics. Here, patent means a document which gives the rights of an invention to an inventor. Albert Einstein was a university graduate and unemployed at the age of 21. Then he worked as a teaching assistant and gave private lessons. He secured a job in 1902 as a technical expert in the patent office in Bern. He called his desk drawer at his patent office as Bureau of Theoretical Physics because Einstein was actually developing his own ideas there. The drawer had the ample proof of his efforts. He had written all his ideas on paper and had kept them there in it. Now I'll read the next two paragraphs. So the youngster played by himself much of the time. He especially loved mechanical toys. Looking at his newborn sister Maza, he is said to have said, "Fine, but where are her wheels?" A headmaster once told his father that what Einstein chose as a profession wouldn't matter because he'll never make a success at anything. Einstein began learning to play the violin at the age of 6 because his mother wanted him to. He later became a gifted amateur violinist, maintaining this skill throughout his life. But Albert Einstein was not a bad pupil. He went to high school in Munich, where Einstein's family had moved when he was 15 months old and scored good marks in almost every subject. Einstein hated the school's regimentation and often clashed with his teachers. At the age of 15, Einstein felt so stifled there that he left the school for good. Here, amateur means non-professional, regimentation means discipline, stifled means unable to breathe. Einstein played by himself and loved mechanical toys very much. Looking at his newborn sister, Maza, he asked where her wheels were. Einstein did not get appreciation from his teachers. A headmaster told his father that he would not get success in any field, but he was a talented violinist and maintained this skill throughout his life. When Einstein joined a school in Munich, he did well in studies, but he hated the school's regimentation and left the school at the age of 15. Now I will read the next two paragraphs. While Einstein was solving the most difficult problems in physics, his private life was unraveling. Albert had wanted to marry Mileva right after finishing his studies, but his mother was against it. She thought Mileva, who was 3 years older than her son, was too old for him. She was also bothered by Mileva's intelligence. "She is a book like you," his mother said. Einstein put the wedding off. The pair finally married in January 1903 and had 2 sons, but a few years later the marriage faltered. Mileva, meanwhile, was losing her intellectual ambition and becoming an unhappy housewife. After years of constant fighting, the couple finally divorced in 1919. Einstein married his cousin Elsa the same year. Here, unraveling means starting to fail. Faltered means became weak. Now I'll explain the paragraph. While he was solving problems in physics, his private life was going through a turmoil. He wanted to marry Mileva Marik, but his mother was against it. She thought Mileva was too old for him, as she was 3 years older than him. She was also bothered by Mileva's intelligence. She was also a bookworm like Einstein. The couple married in January 1903 and had 2 sons, but a few years later the marriage faltered. Mileva lost her intellectual ambition and became an unhappy housewife. They kept fighting with each other, and consequently the couple finally divorced in 1919. Einstein was interested in scientific research and married her because she was also intelligent like him. But her indifferent attitude towards new things made him dislike her. Einstein married his cousin Elsa in the same year. Now I'll read the next two paragraphs. Einstein's new personal chapter coincided with his rise to world fame. In 1915, he had published his general theory of relativity, which provided a new interpretation of gravity. An eclipse of the sun in 1919 brought proof that it was accurate. Einstein had correctly calculated in advance the extent to which the light from fixed stones would be deflected through the sun's gravitational field. The newspapers proclaimed this work as a scientific revolution. Einstein received the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921. He was showered with honors and invitations from all over the world and lauded by the press. Here, deflected means change direction because it hit something. Laud means praise. Einstein published his general theory of relativity in 1915. The newspapers hailed his work as scientific revolution. He received Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921 and received honors and invitations from all over the world. Now I'll read the next paragraph. When the Nazis came to power in Germany in 1933, Einstein emigrated to the United States. 5 years later, the discovery of nuclear fission in Berlin had American physicists in an uproar. Many of them had fled from fascism, just as Einstein had, and now they were afraid the Nazis could build and use an atomic bomb. Here, emigrated means to leave a country permanently. In an uproar means very upset. I'll explain the paragraph. When the Nazis came to power in Germany in 1933, Einstein emigrated to the US. 5 years later, the nuclear fission was discovered by the Nazis in Berlin. It upset the American physicists so much that they were afraid that Nazis would build and use the atomic bomb. Now I'll read the last 3 paragraphs. At the urging of a colleague, Einstein wrote a letter to American President Franklin D. Roosevelt on 2nd August 1939, in which he warned a single bomb of this type exploded in a port might very well destroy the whole port together with some of the surrounding territory. His words did not fail to have an effect. The Americans developed the atomic bomb in a secret project of their own and dropped it on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. Einstein was deeply shaken by the extent of the destruction. This time he wrote a public missive to the United Nations. In it he proposed the formation of a world government. Unlike the letter to Roosevelt, this one made no impact. But over the next decade, Einstein got ever more involved in politics, agitating for an end to the arms buildup and using his popularity to campaign for peace and democracy. When Einstein died in 1955 at the age of 76, he was celebrated as a visionary and world citizen as much as a scientific genius. Here, missive means letter, especially long and official. Visionary means a person who can think about the future in an original and intelligent way. Now I'll explain the paragraphs. Einstein wrote a letter to Franklin D. Roosevelt, the American president, and warned him that a single nuclear bomb would cause a mass destruction. But the Americans developed the atomic bomb secretly and dropped on the Japanese cities Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. Einstein was deeply shaken by the destruction caused by the atomic bombs. He wrote a public letter to the United Nations. In it, he proposed the formation of a world government. This did not prove effective. Einstein, in the next decade, involved himself in politics. He wanted to bring an end to the arms buildup. He worked for peace and democracy. Einstein died in 1955 at the age of 76. He was celebrated as a great visionary and world citizen. The world remembers Einstein as a world citizen because he believed in universal peace. When there was the rat race for becoming atomic power, he was worried about the aftermath of the bomb. He was really a world citizen who was concerned with the humanity. Dear students, hope you find. Today we are going to learn modals in grammar. Modals denote mode of action. Modal auxiliaries like will, would, may, might, can, could, shall, should, etc. are generally used to form certain moods for which English has no inflected verb forms. These are always used with the principal verb that follows them, and they express such ideas as ability, possibility, permission, command, duty, obligation, propriety, etc. In most cases, they indicate present or future time. For example, Ram should go and see his father. Here it indicates present time. Second one, Ram could come and meet his father tomorrow. That indicates future. Now we are going to learn functions of modals. First one, may, might. May is used to denote permission. For example, may I come in. Second one, possibility. For example, it may rain tonight. Might is also used to denote possibility. For example, he might not come even if we ask him. Third one, a wish. For example, may God bless you. Now we are going to learn the functions of can, could and must. The modals can and could are used to denote power or ability. Can is used to denote power or ability in the present, and could is used to denote power or ability in the past. For example, I can beat you in the race. Even as a child, she could sing well. Can and could are used to denote permission. For example, you can go now. Could you lend me some money? Next modal, must. Must is used to denote compulsion or strong moral obligation. For example, we must obey orders. It is also used to denote fixed determination. For example, I must get my money back. It is also used to denote duty. For example, a judge must deliver correct judgment. Now we are going to learn the functions of shall. Shall is used to denote command. For example, he shall have to go. It is also used to denote threat. He shall be punished if he repeats his mistake. It is used to denote compulsion. Members shall pay their duties by the first week of every month. It is used to denote future action. I shall be 12 years old tomorrow. And it is also used to denote desire, permission in interrogative sentences. For example, shall I help you in cooking? Now we are going to learn the functions of modal will. It is used to denote determination. For example, I will do as I like. It is used to denote promise. I will definitely come to your place. It is used to denote threat. For example, I'll surely ask her. It is used to denote wish or willingness. For example, well, I'll do this for his sake. It is also used to denote future action in interrogative sentences. For example, will he turn up today? Now we are going to learn the functions of modal should. Should is used to denote duty or obligation. For example, we should love our neighbors. It is used to give advice. For example, you shouldn't behave in this manner. It is used to denote supposition, probability, or condition, etc. For example, you should try your best even if you fail. It is used after lest. He ran fast lest he should miss the train. Now we are going to learn the functions of would and could. Would is used to denote wish. For example, I would like to have a look at that book. Could is used to denote refusal. For example, she couldn't refuse my invitation. Would is used to denote determination. For example, he would do what he wanted. It is also used to denote condition or uncertainty. For example, I would attend the party if I was invited. Next modal, need. Need is used to denote requirement. For example, she needs rest after working for 2 days. It is also used in the negative sense. For example, she need not worry about us. Now we are going to learn the functions of the modals ought to, have to, and used to. First, ought to. Ought to is used to denote desirability, moral obligation, and duty. For example, I ought to visit her. It is used to denote disapproval. For example, we ought not to laugh at others. It is also used to denote obligation. For example, you ought to have been more careful. The modal have to is used to denote obligation. For example, he will have to finish his work on time. The modal used to is used to denote accustomed to. For example, he is not used to walking long distances. Now we are going to learn the functions of the modal dare. Dare is used to denote the present tense. For example, he does not dare to refuse me. It is used to denote past tense. For example, they dare not say such things again. It is also used to denote interrogative sentence. For example, how dare you talk to me like that? Now we are going to learn mixed modals. First one, could have. Could have is used for things that were possible but did not happen. For example, why did you stay at hotel? You could have stayed with my uncle. Second one, must have. It is used to denote, to say that we feel true or untrue. For example, I lost one of my books. I must have dropped it somewhere. Third one, may or might have. It is used to denote something which is possible. For example, he may have been asleep. In the past, we used might or might have. For example, he might have known about it. Next one, should have. It is used to denote. This means that you didn't do it, but it would have been the right thing to do. For example, I am feeling giddy. I should not have eaten so much chicken. That means I ate too much chicken. You have learned the functions of modals. Now it's time to do your homework. Exercise number 1. Fill in each blank with appropriate modal. A. Dash I speak to the principal for a minute. B. The breeze is cool and fresh. It dash rains soon. C. You dash apologize to your mother for your rude behavior. D. The rich dash help the poor. E. She dash speak French when she was hardly 5. F. Visitors dash take off their shoes before going into the temple. G. We dash buy any sugar. There is enough in the house. H. In order to produce good crops, we dash use fertilizers. I. We dash live in a big house when we were children. J. My parents dash feed the poor on my birthday. Next exercise. Fill in the blanks with appropriate modals. A. She dash says such rude things about me. B. How dash you defy the orders of your boss. C. He dash obey you whether he likes it or not. D. Sometimes the boys dash play a trick on their teacher. E. Dash you do me a favor. F. You dash not answer all the questions but you dash answer the last 4. G. Dash you mind waiting here a few minutes. That's all today, students. Thank you very much.